So I really wish that YouTube would incorporate a feature similar to the way TikTok and other video platforms have, where you can just directly reply to a comment or make a video based on a comment. But they don't have that yet. So there is a comment that a person left on my previous video talking about whether or not we should, as Christians, go to homosexual wedding ceremonies. And first I want to correct myself. I said Alistair McGrath throughout that video. That was a mistake on my part. It's Alistair Vegg was the actual person, and those are two people. They're actually very similar. They've had just as long of ministries, and they both are very reputable, and I have a good affection for both of them, and they have very similar reputations among other Christians in Western evangelicalism. McGrath is more of an apologist. Vegg is more of just a church leader and preacher, but either way, Alistair Vegg is the actual man who made the comments that I was referencing. And so, anyway, so the comment was, would I individually go to the wedding of a heterosexual couple who had been living together prior, or that were not Christians, essentially not living a Christian life, and so forth. And I kind of addressed that a little bit in the video itself, saying that it's not directly analogous to a homosexual union, and that the way that most people try to make it so, in that if a couple is living together and they're engaged in sexual intercourse and so forth without being married, and they finally decide to get married, the unsanctioned sexual activity immediately ends, as far as Scripture is concerned. And so it's not the same thing, the way that homosexuality and homosexual wedding ceremonies compound sin upon sin. But the question is, would I go to one? And the answer is, I have in the past. I've actually been asked to officiate similar circumstanced weddings before, although I've usually declined simply because I'm not actually ordained and haven't been actually ordained anywhere to be able to do so. But would I attend? The answer is yes. At least in the past I have, and I should note, this is kind of the subject of this video here, the thing is, when I have attended weddings between two individuals who were not practicing believers, they're usually kind of bland. There's something missing from the ceremony every time. And so there's an instance when my wife and I, after we got married, we were invited to the wedding of a coworker she had, and him and his engaged were planning to get married. And so they were very leftist, very progressive compared to us. Very just different, just their whole cultural worldview and everything, the people they hung out with, just diametrically opposite from what we were accustomed to. But we went because we care about them, and we had something of a close relationship with the two of them. We've done numerous other just unrelated events with these people because they were deeply connected with the downtown organizations and several small businesses that opened in and around there, different stuff like that. And so we were close with them. So we went, and I don't know what the wording is to describe it, but it was very pagan in its ordinance. It wasn't held in a church. I don't think any church would have allowed them to host their event and do many of the things they did. They did the crossing between a pair of swords, and they did the ribbon binding of their hands, and a lot of these kind of old European sort of derivative, seemingly pagan things. They wrote their own vows, and their vows were, if I could compare them to anything in pop culture, if you've seen the movie The Vow, starring Channing Tatum, Rachel McAdams, it's based on a book, and based sortily, like kind of soft, pedally on a real couple where she has a traumatic brain injury that causes amnesia, makes her forget that she's married to Channing Tatum's character, and he tries to win her back romantically, and whatever. But their vows are very much like, we'll be together until we feel like not being together anymore. That's kind of the summary of it. And it's also very similar to the wedding vows, quote unquote, that are recommended by Adam Ruins Everything. If you've seen his episode of his show thing, his YouTube special, whatever it's called, on marriage and sexuality and such, it's very similar to that kind of stuff, where it's very much convenience oriented rather than commitment oriented. And as far as I know, they are still married, but their relationship was, if we could call it anything, was fairly open to begin with. So I don't know, it was different. It was different than what we were used to, because we've of course been to other weddings of Christians, and like I said, it seemed like there was something missing. And every time we've been to a wedding of two non-believers, whether it was in a church or not, it always kind of seemed like there's something missing, like someone who didn't get invited. And I mean that to mean like as if God wasn't invited. It just doesn't seem the same. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just us, my wife and I, because we always came away in unity or in unison about that. But it always seems weird. It's weird. Especially when you know that they have already lived together. They have already been engaging in sex. They have maybe sometimes even have children together or children with other people. Like, there's always something weird about it. And I don't know, like I said, what to bring to that, how to really unpack it. And the times I've worked weddings, because I've done video, I've done event management, I've done production, catering, done all sorts of different stuff relating to weddings and other similar events. And when I've worked weddings where the couple were getting married, having already lived together, there's something weird about it. And I don't know how to explain that any further. It's something. And so, as far as it's kind of the reason that the argument is made often from the homosexual front of that a wedding is just a ceremony. It's not this mingling of souls. And when the two people that are getting married aren't believers, the argument can strongly be made that it's not a mingling of souls, that it's not this relational unity that Christians and most religious people would say that it is. It's got this weird contractual aspect to it, but often the vows and things are not very, like I've already kind of elaborated on, they're not very commitment oriented, so it's almost not even contractual. It's just, there always seems like if you're putting together a puzzle and then you've spent all this time, however long it took, to put this puzzle together, and you get all the way to the end, the box is empty and there's one missing. And it's like, you can't have the time back, obviously. But you also didn't finish it. You didn't get the full picture. And you're kind of like, well, that was disappointing. That's what I would compare it to. Or if you're building Legos, you can get to the very end and you realize that there was a piece not in the box from the very beginning. You're just, now what do I do? What do I do with this thing now? It's not complete. I can't finish it, but I also don't want to just take all the pieces apart again. Like it's like that. And so it's just not the same experience. And building relationships as a whole, building friendships apart from a foundation built in Christ, from my perspective, has been that way a lot. Where I'll just have this something's missing here. Sure, I might be able to play pickleball with somebody, but when it's not based on a mutual love of Christ, there's something just not there. And I've also got this experience going on right now where I have a secular job, not religious in any way, and I've got a second job that is working in a religious environment, and just the atmosphere of the second job is so much better in every way. It's so much more enjoyable. Everyone loves each other, takes care of each other, watches out for each other's mental and emotional health and their physical health. And they come in just, you look like you need like 5 minutes. Go take a break. I'll watch your class for a few minutes so you can do that. Like stuff like that, just voluntarily sharing the load. I don't have that at the secular job that I have on the weekends, where people will intentionally slough jobs and work onto other parts of the company because they can and no one can do anything about it. Of, oh, well, that's just day shift's problem now, and things of that nature, where there's a lot of just nonsense, just low energy and investment level, a lot of minimal effort in involvement, and laziness and selfishness, and just a lot of that. And it's the rule, not the exception. Whereas in my other job, the rule, not the exception, is this sacrificial love, care for one another. It's totally different, diametrically opposed to one another. And if you're not a believer and you don't know what I'm talking about, this diametric difference, I would encourage you, first of all, go to church. I guarantee it. You go to an average church somewhere, you'll experience a lot of the same thing. The difference in atmosphere between what it's like to be around people that love Jesus and those that don't. And you can tell the difference. And then additionally, if you've ever worked with someone that's a believer, the difference is palatable. And so, would I go to a wedding that was between two non-believers that have no intention of becoming them? Now, I think I would politely decline just about every time, because on the one hand, my schedule is very full. I got 2 jobs, I got a almost 3-year-old, I got a wife, I got a house. Like, I have a very full schedule to begin with. I don't have a lot of weekends to just throw at stuff. And then additionally, I'm not the rando going to a wedding just because someone invited me anyways. Unless I really know you, which we do have. I do have a wedding I am going to back in California later this year, and it's only because I was mentoring both the bride and groom for a long time, and literally I'm just going in for the wedding, showing up, and then leaving the next day because it's a flight and such. Like, I don't have a lot of options, but I don't go out of my way to just go to these events. Some people do because of various reasons. I'm not that guy. I don't want to go to a wedding if I don't really know somebody. And so I'm probably, if it's 2 non-believers, the 2 of them don't really having interest in becoming believers, and I'm not real familiar with them to begin with. Maybe they're just family or something, distant relatives, I don't know, whatever. I'm probably just politely declining, and that's kind of the summary of it, because just the entire thing, it's got a weird vibe to it that I'm not interested in taking part. That's all there is to it.